I purchased this resin printer a little over a year ago. It's a Saturn 3 Ultra by Elegoo, and it was my first resin printer. I didn't know a whole lot about them when I purchased it. I read a ton of reviews. This one seemed like a workhorse. It didn't have all the bells and whistles. It didn't have an auto leveling plate or anything on it, but people said it was built good, easy to set up, and it doesn't have a lot of failed prints, and I think it's lived up to that. I know the Saturn 4 Ultra is out. It's got some features that sound good, but from what I've read, people have had problems with it, so I'm really glad that I bought the Ultra 3. But I want to go over kind of what I learned. I had a 3D printer before this. I still have it. It's a Creality that I've got in that enclosure over there, and I've done quite a bit of printing with that. But I learned that I could get smoother prints with a resin printer, and that's kind of what made me get into this. But there's a lot of stuff that I had to learn that wasn't completely obvious to me, and I'd just like to cover that in this video. So let's start with how the printer even works. So I'm loosening this up. This is actually the build plate right here. I'm just gonna get it out of the way. It's still got some resin on it. And the resin is toxic. You don't want to touch it with your hands. Probably should be wearing gloves. But this is the build surface right here. And this is what the part is actually going to stick to when you print it. And it's going to print upside down. And this surface needs to be completely flat. Some of the other printer brands or people that have had issues, it's because the surface is warped. Part of the build plate is touching the screen, part of it is not. And when you have gaps and not a smooth surface, that's a lot of the problems that people will have. So I took that out of the way because I'm going to take this pool of resin off of it, and I didn't want anything to drip down on the screen. I think this comes with a screen protector, but I'd rather not get resin on that either. So I'm setting this aside right here. And this is the screen. I think it does have a protector right from the factory on it. And this screen will project an image up of basically just a light shape. And that light is UV. It projects UV out, and it's gonna harden the very bottom layer of this resin. So this build plate is gonna go down into the pool. They call it, I think, a vat. And it's gonna go all the way down till it basically hits the bottom just above the screen. There's a way to calibrate it so that it's where it needs to be. It's basically putting a piece of paper here, lowering this until it hits it, and then pressing a button. Completely easy to do. It'll go down, and it will project the image for the very first layer of your print. So I print these little key covers for the STI key. This is primarily what I use it for. So this has, I think, around 200 layers. So when it goes down and it prints, it's gonna print this layer. The very top of this, these print upside down. And then it's gonna lift up, and then it's gonna go down again, but it's gonna go down just slightly above where it was so it can do the second layer. So what does that mean? It means it does the entire Z layer at the same time. So when you think of the other style of printers with a filament and it's got the little nozzle that's going around, if you have a big shape you're printing or a lot of little shapes, that nozzle has to travel around everywhere for that Z layer. This resin printer does the entire layer that's submerged in the resin in about 4 seconds or 5 seconds, whatever your exposure time is. So it's printing right now. It says it's 73% done. It'll tell you how many layers it's printed and how many layers are left, as well as the time. So it's printed 313 layers, so I guess it's technically more than the 200 that I said, but it's got about 110 left. And I'm gonna go ahead and just lift this up so you can get a better look at it. And if you watch this, it just went down, and it's gonna stay there for the exposure time, so 4 seconds. And then it's gonna lift back up. So it's lifting up, and then it's going down again, but it's gonna be slightly above where it was, and that's that layer. And you can see the build plate is out of the resin right now. The first layers that it'll do, it's gonna go right down in the resin almost to the screen, and resin's gonna go up over the top of it. And if you look way on the back, you'll see there's that max line. So when you pour the resin in, you don't wanna go above that because when it dips down in there, it could send resin over the sides and that would be bad. These printers also, I'm not gonna do it, but I think I can show you. You can actually pause the print when it's going. So if you're worried about it sticking to the plate and you wanna check it after it does, I don't know, maybe 50 layers or so, you can come in and you can pause it, and then you can actually lift the thing up on the screen. You can raise it, and you can peek under the plate and make sure that you've got good adhesion to it, and then you can resume printing and it'll go back and continue. So typically with a resin printer, the longer the UV light stays on it, the harder that it gets, the more that it cures. So the very first few layers that are attached to the build plate, you'll have a higher exposure time. I think it starts to around 25 seconds. And then after 2 or 3 layers, the exposure time is going to decrease. It's usually somewhere between like 3.5 to 5 seconds, and it'll vary based on the temperature and the resin you're using. And there are prints that you can do, kind of trial and error to see how detailed they are, so you can dial that in. So underneath this pool of resin is a really thin layer of like a plastic material. I think it's called FEP, F-E-P. And some of the FEP that you can get, I don't know if they say FEP or FEP, honestly. Some of it is clear, some of it is cloudy. And initially, people said that the cloudy stuff did not work as well, but Elegoo, it's like a cloudy, it's semi-transparent, it's not completely see-through, and it works completely fine. So I'm gonna put this back on, and you have to be extremely careful with it. You don't wanna touch it. You don't wanna get it on anything else. You don't wanna wash it down the drain or anything like that because it's toxic. If it does splatter, if you do get some on the cover or anything like that, you wanna wipe it up immediately with isopropyl alcohol. The stronger, the better. So I get this 91% from Walmart. And this cover right here is UV protectant. It blocks out light. If you left this resin open for a long time and you got sunshine coming through the window, it would start to harden. So you want to keep it out of the light as much as possible. You also don't want to leave resin in here for several days at a time. If you're using it and you do your print and you know you have some more to do and you're going to come back to it tomorrow or the next day, you can leave it like this, but you don't want to leave it like this for like a month at a time. You need to empty the resin out. You can pour it back into the original container depending on the resin. Some will say it's fine, some will say it's not. I've used some that says it's not fine, and I did it anyways, and I haven't had any issues with it. Worst case scenario, when you're printing something, so I'm gonna stick this back on. This is the build plate. And the reason it comes off like this is so you can get to that easily, and you can also submerge this entire thing to clean it. So I'm gonna put this up there, and I'm gonna do it quickly. I don't want anything to drip off or get it on the screen or anything like that. These come with a screen protector, and I think you're supposed to just pull it off, but I left it on there for extra protection. If this leaks and gets on anything, it'll start to eat into the plastic. It's not good. That's how bad it is. So these little screw things are gonna clamp this down. It's one on each side. And that white thing that you see back there, that is for dealing with the smell, the toxins that are in the air. So this doesn't smell ideal. You don't wanna like have this in your kitchen or living room or anything like that. You want it in an area that is like a garage where it's not too cold or anything, or maybe a basement, or if you have ventilation pipes or something going out. So this is clamped down nice and well. This is on there. You want to make sure the handle is tight. These are the 4 leveling screws. When you first get it and you need to level it, you loosen them all, you put it down, make it flat, and then you tighten them. And I've only had to do that once. Over a year ago, I haven't had to touch it ever since. I haven't really had any failed prints per se. I do print about 18 of these at a time. And if I come out and it's kind of cold out, sometimes the very first print, I'll have like one or two that partially print. But after it's been working and the light has been coming on and this has been dipped in and out 200 times, it warms up this resin, and then I don't have any problems after that. So I just finished printing, and this is what I mean. Everything is kind of covered in that liquid residue. You can see that I had one fail over here, only half of it printed. So that means the other piece is in there somewhere, and I'm gonna have to get it out. Usually I do this with one hand. I'll hold this with my left hand and use the scraper with my right, but I'm gonna hold the camera, so I'm kind of just gonna show you what I do here. So just a quick swipe just to get under all of these. I try to keep them on the plate, and then I'm gonna go at it from the other side, just to loosen everything up so it sticks pretty well. And this is a silicone mat from Kohl's. I'd recommend getting one of those. And this is the piece on the bottom. That's what helps it adhere. So I need to break that off. It's got the supports, and I can usually do it with one hand. And then this is what it looks like after. And this has got to go into here. So I'm going to keep doing this with all of them. When it's done printing, it lifts out out of this, and I'll usually let it sit for like 5 minutes. And when I loosen the build plate on there, I'll slide it off and I'll tip it a little one way and the other way, and that'll help some of the resin that's on these. It'll help it drip, just so you save resin, and there's less chance of when you slide it over of it dripping and landing on the screener somewhere. But yeah, I'll get the rest of them done in the basket, and then this goes in the wash station. And then once it's done, and I'm going to start my next print. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. You could wipe this down with a paper towel and some alcohol so it's a clean surface when it goes back in. But normally what I'll do is I'll just take this scraper and I'll hold it over this bucket, and I'll just go right down, and that kind of leaves a clean path. So I'll go down it 3 or 4 times so it's clean, and then I'll put it right back in. If this was my first print of the day, and the resin was cold, and this was just how it was from last night, I'd probably wipe it clean with a little bit of this alcohol. And I'd also take this plastic scraper, if this had been sitting for a day or two, and I'd put it in there, and I'd just move it around just to kind of mix it up in case anything has settled. You kind of want to stir it if you're going to resume printing after a day or two. If you do have a print that fails and it's not stuck to the build plate, what can happen is some of the resin, the hardened resin, can be in this pool. And that's not good, because you don't want to print something else, because now you've got a hard object in here. And when this goes down to print, it's going to press on that into the screen. It could tear that plastic liner, the FEP, and it could leak onto the screen and damage stuff. So if you do have a failed print and it comes off and you're like, crap, you need to either pour this resin in another container so you can kind of dig at the object. It comes with this plastic spatula thing, scraper. Or, so see how I'm scraping that so you can see the surface. Or if you take the pool off like I just did, sometimes you can tip it to kind of make the resin pour to one side if the object is over here, and then you can stick your finger under it and push lightly on that plastic liner, and that can dislodge the object, and then you can get it out of there, and you don't need to pour this into another container. So here's a good example. I've got this tipped so the resin's all on this end. This is the piece that's sticking out, and you can't really scrape it off with a plastic scraper from the top when it's on a flat surface, but you get your finger under it and you flex that FEP, and you can see it pop up. So I'm just gonna do that, and I'm gonna, while it's popped up, I'm gonna pick it out with a scraper, then I'll put this back on, and I'll run the scraper all over the surface just to make sure that it doesn't expose something else that's stuck to it. But that should just be the only spot. So it all depends if it's just a little piece or a big piece, or if you're doing a ton of supports and there are a bunch of little pieces, it's probably safer to pour everything out and through like a filter or strainer. I use those paint filters right there, and that'll make sure there's no foreign objects in here, because this is supposed to be liquid resin. Anything hard in here will cause problems for you. So I'm gonna set this over here. It comes with a scraper too. This is for getting stuff off the build plate. So after it prints and you've got your object up here, you can use this to scrape it off. And it has a Wi-Fi thing on here, so you can actually send your prints to it over the network. You don't have to deal with a little USB stick or anything like that. And this is my computer over here. That's what my build plate looks like. And if you're used to dealing with other slicers like Cura or Prusa slicer or anything like that, there's a ton of options. With Elegoo's software, I think it's called Shitubox. I'm probably saying that wrong. It's really simple. There's only really two panes. You put the objects on, you can rotate them, mirror them, move them around the build plate, and then it's got a spot for kind of the supports. You need to add supports. Typically you want the objects to print with some kind of platform. You can see I've got the white thing right here. That's what sticks to the build plate. And if I were to rotate this, you'd see that I've got all these little supports under it. And that's mostly it. It's really those two areas. There's some settings for basically the resolution of it, like the Z height, if you would, and also the exposure time. Like, do you want it to expose for 4 seconds or 5 seconds or 3.5 seconds? And then the bottom exposure time. So there's a lot less configuration with a resin printer. Let's talk about some of the resins. Some of it comes in bottles like this. Some of it is washable with water, like this one, I think. Yeah, water washable. Some of it is ABS-like. Some of it comes in a bag. A lot of resin kind of has like a translucent look to it. So you order blue or you order red and you print it and you can partially see through it. So it's not like a solid color, like the spools that you get. Like I've got a black spool there and I've got a blue one somewhere. A lot of the resin, getting the right color is difficult. You have to try several until you find something that works. You can use resin dye, and that's what I had to do. I got a blue that was close, and I had to mix some white and some other colors to it, and you can get resin dye. This stuff works pretty well to experiment with it to get the right color. But resin is expensive. It can be $40, $50, $60, $70. And the expiration date on it is only usually like a year or two. And I don't know what happens if you wait 3 years and print with it. But you want to mix it and shake it really well. And you want to use it before the expiration date if you can. And just because it says water washable, what that means is that every part that comes out of this printer, it's got to be up here. The part that you printed has got the exposure. It's semi-hard. It's not going to break apart or something, but it's going to be covered in all of this liquid resin that's in there. And you need to wash that off these parts. And you can't put it down a sink or anything like that. It's toxic. You need to use a wash station. You could put it in a jar with some alcohol or water if it's water washable. But a lot of places will sell these things. So this is my wash station right here. And if I press this, it turns on. And this is isopropyl alcohol that's in here. And I think it's like 4 or 5 containers. And you can see there's a little wheel down there, so I'm going to turn this on for 30 seconds. And you can see that's spinning the stuff around. So you would put the parts in there. They'd go into a basket first. I think the basket's, yeah, right here. So you would put the liquid covered parts in this basket. You would take the basket, you'd stick it over here, you'd put it in there, and you'd run it for about 12 minutes or so till it's clean. And you know it's clean when you take the parts out. You kind of let them air dry and they don't feel slimy. And eventually, this water, you can see I've been doing a lot of blue, it is pretty cloudy. And maybe after 3 or 4 more prints, they're gonna start coming out a little slimy, and I need to clean this. And the alcohol is expensive, and this is one of the things that wasn't obvious to me when I bought the printer. I'm like, well, how do I clean this? So this is what I mean about the dirty isopropyl alcohol. I've done a ton of these blue key covers. The water's extremely blue now. You can't really see through it. It's at the point where you wash them and the parts kind of still feel a little slimy. So I'm gonna go set this in the sun for about an hour. So you can see I've had this out in the sun for about an hour. All of the resin particles in the isopropyl alcohol have kind of began to harden, and it's turned into this sludge-like material. This is what you can pour through a paper towel slowly. It takes a while to filter this stuff out, and then you'll be left with isopropyl alcohol that's clean again that you can use. You do lose some of it in the process, so you have to add some more after, but it's a good way to reuse as much as you can. So what I usually do is just lay a paper towel across the funnel, and I'll pour it, and it'll pool up to the top of the funnel, and I'll go away for 20 minutes and it'll be down. And then I'll take the paper towel out and I'll put another one in and repeat until it's pretty much all down. And then you're gonna have a bunch of paper towels that have all this gunky resin residue on them, and you just keep those outside and the sunlight will harden it completely, and then you can throw them away. So once the parts are clean and they come out of this, they're gonna look like this. This is partially hardened through the light on that printer, but I need to fully cure it. So that's what this is right here. So this is UV light, and I like to do 12 minutes on this as well. So those lights, there's one even on the bottom here, on the bottom of the wheel that shines up. That's going to cure it and fully harden these. So some things that I didn't know about resin printers is, one, I knew they could print really fast because they do the entire Z layer at the same time. But I didn't take into account that if you do a big part, this is a hedgehog, you have to make them hollow. You can't make this full of resin because the UV light, when you harden it, is never going to reach inside here. So the UV light will harden the outer layers, and you have to leave a hole in the bottom to shine light on the inside. And this Elegoo UV station thing comes with this little guy. This thing will plug into the side here, and this is a little UV light. So you can take that UV light and you can point it in here and just hold it in there to harden the inside. You also need to make sure that you wash the inside good. So 12 minutes in this may not be enough. You may need to dip it in and shake it and repeat, because you want to make sure that the inside doesn't have a lot of liquid resin and is fully hardened. If you have something that's too thick, what can happen over time, if it cracks or anything, you can have the liquid resin go out of it, and that's not good. So let's look at some of these key covers. This is an older one that was printed with kind of the normal printer. You can see all the print lines on it, and it works. It's a little crude. I could make the settings finer and get a better result out of it. But this is the resin printer, and this is just kind of the standard settings. So it's a lot smoother and a lot more detail. And I end up sanding these to make them even smoother. And that leads me to the next point. You've got this part, and it it's fully hardened and it looks good. But resin will continue hardening over time. So you cured this, it's fully cured, there's no liquid inside it or anything like that. If you leave this out in the sunlight for several years, it'll continue hardening in the exposure to light, and it'll get more brittle, and eventually it can crack and break. But what you need to do is protect it with something. Some people use like a urethane. I use a clear coat that's got UV protectant just to go over these. And this is kind of what it looks like after it's been sanded and cleared. Here's one on the key. So that'll protect it from scratches, because resin that is not coated in something will scratch easy. You can scratch it with your fingernail and it'll protect it from the UV exposure. So I think that pretty much covers it. It's more toxic. It doesn't smell well. You have to take more time washing it and curing stuff and letting it harden and then cleaning everything up. You have to be very careful moving it so you don't get resin on anything you don't want, because it'll start to eat into it. You can't make really thick parts unless they're hollow. Like I was hoping that I could print these and save some time, and you can't really do that because the inside would never harden. You'd use a ton of resin. The part would be really heavy. You can't really do like the skeleton structure inside it, because how are you going to harden that? You'd need 30 holes in the bottom of this to shine that UV light, or you'd need to leave the entire bottom of it kind of open, and you'd see that cross structure that's in it. So originally I thought, well, I'll print these really fast. They'll print in like a quarter of the time, but that's not the case. You can't use a resin printer for everything, but they do have their purpose. And the resin is more expensive. It's difficult to get the right color. You have to experiment with the dye. And you have to deal with the alcohol when you're done with it. But hopefully that gives you an idea. Let me know if you have any questions.